Hi, everyone. I'm James Garbutt.
And I'm Denny Dumas.
And this is the Garbutt Dumas Real Estate Podcast.
It's no secret in Greater Vancouver. Everybody knows. Anyone that has a variable rate mortgage definitely knows.
Oh, yeah.
Interest rates have climbed quite a bit. Bank of Canada announced another hike a little while ago, a few days ago. Now they are up 2.25% in the last few months. And historically, I don't think we've ever seen a jump this quickly, this much. We're coming off of, it's important to put it in perspective. We're coming off of historic low interest rates during COVID, where people were getting variable rates around 1%, which is unbelievably low. So prime now is, I believe, sitting at 4.2%. Or 4.7. I think it's 4.7. We're going to double check that and we're going to write in the notes. But in the last few months, interest rates climbed 2.25%. Bank of Canada has increased their overnight rate 2.25%. And housing has definitely slowed down. So we want to kind of share our thoughts on this and maybe make some predictions for the second half of the year. 4.7. Thank you. I knew I was right. Yes.
Yes, Denny.
Honestly, it's changed so quickly that it's actually difficult to keep up, right? It's like every 2 weeks. Okay, and every time they increase it by a different amount, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, first one's 0.25%, next one's 0.5%, next one's 1%. Ooh.
Oh, gosh.
But, I mean, anyone that's paying attention to real estate, if you own a home, you have felt the impacts of the interest rate increases. If you are trying to sell your home or looking to purchase a new home, and then over this summer, you have seen prices adjust, and the way that real estate is, or I guess the environment that you're purchasing or selling in, adjust quite drastically. In most neighborhoods, we've probably seen prices come down in the ballpark of like 5 to 15%, just depending on what type of product and where in the Lower Mainland you are buying or selling. But on the upper end, Fraser Valley, we've seen single family homes come down like 15 to 20%. And that is a really, really big, big decrease in a very short period of time. So we'll kind of share our thoughts on what we think is going to happen this fall. With the recent 1% increase, are prices going to drop more?
I mean, I think that it's a lot. It's just like a rewind. It's a complete rewind. All the properties that climbed the highest are going to fall the furthest. And the areas that you saw really unpredictable increases in price, they're going to be the first areas that have the really low, bottomed out prices that they weren't expecting. And it seemed really unpredictable at first, but if you really look at the numbers, it's quite literally a rewind. All the areas that were really popular actually didn't rise that much when the market really spiked and took off because their value was already so set. It certainly went up, but not, for example, areas like East Van. East Van has always had really strong numbers. It didn't climb even close to areas like Maple Ridge. Maple Ridge climbed so quickly and so high, and those are the first places, they are way down. They're those areas, Fraser Valley, like you said, they're the 20%, they're feeling it, but they had the furthest to climb and the farthest to fall. Yeah.
Totally. What do you think this new rate hike is going to do to activity over the summer and let's say into September, October, which usually is when we see quite a big pickup in real estate activity?
I'm kind of feeling it right now already with a lot of my buyers that have been searching for the last year or so. They all went into hibernation between the first interest rate hike and the second one, just absolutely terrified, but they're slowly crawling out. Basically just getting reapproved, understanding what the new mortgage is going to cost you, understanding what you can afford. We saw a lot of offers collapse due to financing because people just didn't understand what their budget was, which is honestly, it's fair. I know that there's a lot of frustration with listing agents and a lot of talk of like, oh, are your buyers approved and this and that. Well, come on, it's been a really tumultuous market. Nobody can get a hold of their mortgage broker. Mortgage brokers are out there just grinding it. So I think that whole chaos is kind of behind us or close to behind us. Most of my buyers have been reapproved already. They understand their budgets, and we're kind of chipping away at what looks like a really good buyer's market.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to that other than that word that you used was phenomenal. It's very impressed. Tumultuous?
Tumultuous, yeah.
Really good, great
Guys,
word.
I've got a lot of them. Yeah, I write them down in my diary.
As soon as you said that, I like blanked out and was just like, man, I don't even think I know the definition of that word. That was a really awesome word. Yeah, I kind of agree. It's been strange the last week. So I believe the rate was announced a week ago. And in that last week, it seems like we almost have gotten a little bit busier, both with buyer clients, but also on listings that haven't been super active over the last few weeks that have been a market for a month or so, have now gotten more showing. So it's a little bit confusing why another rate hike has increased activity in the real estate world and the type of stuff that we are buying and selling right now with clients. Other than, I think this is just the new reality, and it took buyers a couple months to understand. We've definitely seen those price adjustments since April. And so I think, yes, your lending power has gone down a little bit with the increase in rates, but also what you're looking to purchase has also come down. And so I don't think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I don't think what that typical buyer client that we're working with right now, I don't think what they can afford to buy has really adjusted much, because it's kind of
It really
gone
hasn't.
together.
I mean, a good example are, I have these buyers I've been working with for probably 2 years, and they're in the two, actually maybe close to 3, 2.5, maybe 3. What they were able to afford when we started looking versus what they can afford today is the exact same product. I mean, it had several different price points in between, and during that time, their condo was worth several different prices, but the actual product itself that they can afford is exactly the same.
Yeah. When buyers are looking to upsize, for example, usually they're getting pre-approved, and I'll just give a random example. My pre-approval is $1.8 million to buy a home. Most of the time, the people that we're working with don't want to go to that number. They're setting a budget for themselves of like 1.5-ish. They don't want to stretch themselves to the absolute max, protecting themselves for situations like this where rates are climbing. But a lot of those people are still wanting to purchase in that type of range. And yes, maybe their pre-approvals come down from 1.8 to 1.6, but they weren't looking at 1.8 anyway. And it's actually really attractive if you've been looking for 6 to 12 months. What you were looking at 1.5, for example, now is worth 1.3. So I don't blame people for being excited about the rate increases. Yes, maybe their monthly payment would go up slightly in their price range, but the home that they were looking at has now come down a few $100,000.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for a lot of our clients that are trying to get into detached, because they have the time that they need to look. They can see a few on the weekend. They don't have to make a decision on Monday morning. It's a really exciting time for our buyers. The interest rates, I mean, it's the oldest story in the book. They're going to change. Everybody knows it. That's why they're rates, right? They're going to go up, they're going to go down. And the rates that we're experiencing right now, whereas yes, it's in a historically quick change in the rates, it's not a historically high rate.
I was talking with Alex McFadden the other day, and he was saying the 10-year average, we are just a notch above the 10-year average for variable rates, I believe we were talking about. So right now, a variable rate is going to be prime minus. The discounts are a little bit lower than they were in the past year, but let's say prime minus 0.3, prime minus 0.5, something in that kind of range. So your interest rate will be just above 4% currently, where they stand right now, 4.7 minus, let's say 0.5, so 4.2%. And that is slightly above the 10-year average. So, I mean, in terms of the last decade, you are really kind of right in line with where it's normally been. Yes, we had record low rates in 2020, 2021. Will they come back? Maybe, who knows? But a lot of people are just understanding this is the reality, and it's exciting. I still want to make this, upsize move. I want to sell my townhouse that hasn't gone down as much as the house that I want to buy, and it is what it is. I'll take the 4% rate.
No kidding. Here's a fun prediction. Denny, do you think that the rates will ever be as low as they were, like, again, in the next 10 to 15 years?
Yes.
Super excited for that.
The reason I say that is just I have very little faith in the people that are controlling the prime rate. And if the last 2 years of decisions tells me anything, I would assume that if we do enter into some sort of recession in Canada, I'd assume they, don't let it last too long. And one of the ways to help progress out of a recession is the low interest rates.
So, what does Denny do? Are you variable or fixed?
Always variable 100% of the time. And you don't have to do what Denny does.
I'm also variable, so do what Monica does.
I just, I don't know if sporadic is the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind right now. I get antsy and I was in that townhouse for 1.5 years, which I thought I was going to be in for 5 or 7 years, and just decided to move. And if you're in a fixed rate and you are have a 5-year term and you are deciding that you want to move in 1.5 years, you are paying a big penalty to get out of that versus a 3-month interest penalty, which is what your variable rate is going to be all the time. So regardless of the split, and if you look at the history of interest rates, variable wins 9 out of 10 years. And that's going back like a few decades, not just in the last decade. So for me, I mean, 90% of the time you're winning in variable as it is. And then just the flexibility of being able to move around your rate, especially as, rates have climbed. And my guess is in the next 18 to 24 months, rates will come back down. And when they do, usually banks are offering bigger discounts. So like we just kind of discussed, variables right now are going to be somewhere in that prime minus 0.3, prime minus 0.5 range. As they start coming back down, banks likely will be a little more lenient with those discounts. And then if you're in a fixed, you are locked in for 5 years. Otherwise, you're paying a big penalty. Versus variable, you have the flexibility to reassess your mortgage situation. And maybe in 2 years from now, a bank is offering prime minus 1.1 again, prime minus 1.2, which they were a year ago. You have the opportunity to refinance, potentially pull some money out if your home has increased in value, but refinance to take advantage of those lower rates, and your penalty is so much smaller in a variable than a fixed most of the time. Yeah,
you just have to be careful with variable and be smart, understand your finances, and know what you can afford.
Totally. Like we kind of talked about, like most people are conscious of, rates can move when you're going into a variable and you're kind of budgeting for it to go up potentially in the 3 to 5 years that you're living in that place or planning to live there. If you're stretching yourself and fixed rates are really low and you are 100% sure that you're going to live in that house for 5 years for that 5-year term, go fixed. I have a couple friends who bought homes in 2020 and 2021 that are sitting at a 5-year fixed rate under 2%. And so, I mean, they look like geniuses in a time like this. But, let's say they have their second kid and they need to move 2 years out of that 5-year term. They're probably going to lose all of the savings and more by paying a $20,000 penalty, for example. Yeah,
so that's what I'm talking about. It's really important to understand what that really is, and where those dollars are going, and what happens if anything changes. And if you decide to invest in something and you want to pull out some equity, if you're in fixed, you're getting penalized.
Totally.
Yeah.
Predictions for the fall in 2023.
Oh, this is exciting. Well, it's kind of hard right now because we're sitting at the end of July going into August, which is typically the slowest time of the year. It's slower than Christmas. Like August is in the time that I've been in real estate, it's always been the slowest. But I still have a little tickle. I still feel like it's starting to pick up a little bit. So I think the fall is going to be a little bit more exciting than the summer, for sure. I think because we had such a snooze fest this summer, there are still buyers out there. And one thing I've learned about the market in Greater Vancouver is that when it's slow, it's just building up. There's just build up. Is that buildup going to give way this fall or in the spring? I don't know, but I do think we're going to have an active November, December. I think it's going to be November, December, January. It's going to be a busy time for us. Yeah.
Usually that's the time of year where we see the lowest inventory, and we talk about this all the time. The biggest issue in Greater Vancouver real estate is the lack of supply. And even though we've seen sales activity go down 30% in the last couple months with interest rate hikes, we still are not seeing overwhelming supply. There still is not an overwhelming number of listings available for sale. Yes, they're sitting on the market a little bit longer. Yes, there are less buyers active right now. But when consumers get comfortable with the new reality of interest rates, which I think they probably will, September, October, November, we'll see what Bank of Canada does this fall. And if they increase it another, or if they have another overnight rate increase, I see it being smaller, 0.25, maybe 0.5%. And then that's probably the last one. TBD on that. We will reassess. But I just see consumers getting comfortable with the new reality. And I see activity picking up late in the year as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is middle of September. But if I had to guess, I would say it probably starts getting super active again after the new year.
See, I feel like it's going to be a little bit sooner, November, December, but the reason for this is just looking at history. I mean, we were having, 60 people, 70 people through new listings quite literally a week before it slowed down tremendously. Those 60 and 70 buyers didn't just vanish into thin air. They're taking a breather. They're still out there. Yeah. They haven't bought anything. Their parents want to kick them out of their basements. They have to buy something. They're just adjusting from getting to buy a $650,000 condo to, maybe a $550,000 condo. That's the difference. And I think once they realize that they're saving $100,000, but they're going to spend a little bit more on interest, we're going to see some action.
A lot of consumers in Greater Vancouver have FOMO. And we see that in any busy market. People have this thought process of, if I don't buy now, I'm never, ever going to be able to afford anything in Greater Vancouver. And so if inventory gets low towards the end of the year and we start seeing prices climb, like let's say that house that was 1.5 now is 1.3, that first or second sale in that neighborhood that goes to 1.4, 1.45, or gets back to 1.5, I could see a lot of people jumping off the fence now and being, okay, this is it. Prices are going back up. I got to get in right now. And typically that happens end of the year when there's low inventory. And that's when we see markets shift really quickly into a new year.
So this is the last prediction. Will Adam Senek buy a property this year? Or is he going to just sit there and wait for the prices to go back up?
If I was Adam's realtor, I would consider ending the relationship.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I mean, to be honest, Adam is in a pretty good spot, that he's got a very good place that he lives right now that is at a hilariously low rent for the neighborhood. And he's picky about where he wants to go to, and I don't blame him for it. He's in a good market to be picky. There will be more supply in the next couple months than there potentially could be in all of 2023. So I think he's anxious, but he's also picky. So it's just balancing that. And if I had to bet on it, I say yes, he signs a contract by the end of 2022.
Ooh, let's see.
Maybe not move. Maybe he'll move in the new year.
Yeah, but he signs a contract.
Yeah.
All right. That's a good prediction. I can't wait to see what happens.
We will definitely update you guys in a couple months on Adam's situation.
Don't know, Adam is a realtor on our team.
Yeah. All right. On to the next.